Yeah. No. I get that. I get that. But I was on a roller coaster when that happened. Yeah. I went through the first loop, start feeling woozy. Got to the second loop, threw up. By the time the loop came around, it landed right back. Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today we are going to cover div elements. Okay, so HTML, div elements. This is a block level element. If you're not sure what that is, you can pretty much check out the previous video. And if you are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Stack, Mr. Stack, full stack that is. Today, we will be structuring out an HTML page using a div element. We'll add an actual header, navigation, okay, but mainly just the block areas itself. Just the structure, just the skeleton, so you can kind of see how you would go about laying out a page. Obviously, there are a number of different ways to actually structure a page itself, but we're going to cover the bare bones essentials just to actually get you started, and then you'll see where you can actually add your content in later. Okay? All right. So without further ado, let's go on ahead and make that happen. So what you're going to want to do is make sure you have your Visual Studio Code open, and which you will notice that I do. And from there, what we're going to do is add an actual file. Let's see where we're at. We're in the YouTube channel directory. You can have any directory that you would actually want. And from there, what we're going to do is, that's the block versus inline, which was the previous video. Let's go on ahead and let's add a new file. And we're going to call this div element or div tag, but it's entirely up to you. We do know that we'll need to use the .html. Okay, and in this one, we're going to actually add some CSS too. So let's see how we're going to do this. We'll keep it right on the actual page itself. So just to make it easy. And let's see, does anyone remember what we need to do to have a bare bones HTML template? That's right. We're going to need the exclamation mark, or is it exclamation point? And we can press tab or enter. I'll press enter. I'm going to actually right click on the file so we can open it up with one of our extensions of live server. And if you don't have live server, then you can just open up the file, which is saved in whichever directory you are in. And let's do that. So let's open up. Here is our local file. And I'm going to close this just so we have some more screen real estate. And I'm going to add a title. We're going to call that title, what are we working with here? So div elements. And you'll notice that change over to the left tab when we made that change. Slide this over for more screen real estate. Oh, there we go. Okay, one at a time here. There we go. All right, and let's start out with let's see here. When we're structuring an actual page, usually what's going to happen is you're going to have a header, you're going to have a navigation area, you're going to have maybe some ads to the left or some main content and a footer. What we're going to want to do is contain all of that within an actual wrapper. In some cases, you may actually call it a container. So let's do this. Let's make it an actual wrapper itself. So I'm going to just go hash wrapper. And you'll see what that did within Visual Studio Code. When you do that, it'll actually auto-populate the actual markup for you. So if I get rid of that, it would be the same as me just typing in a div, adding an ID attribute and giving it a name of wrapper, closing that, and there we go. So this is going to be pretty much the container. This is going to be the container of our layout for today. All right, and let's add some style right within the page. And normally we would add an actual CSS file, which is the style of the HTML, which makes your HTML actually pretty, more professional, and pretty much which makes all the magic happen as far as the front end perspective is concerned. So let's add the style here, and that's not going to work. Let's try again. There we go. And we're going to select this wrapper just so we can start seeing the actual layout itself and how we do that. And don't worry if none of this makes sense. We're just going to take it, try to take it slow. But the CSS series does actually start relatively shortly. So you'll be able to fast forward and actually go to that where you can actually just start getting your toes wet with CSS. So we're going to select the actual wrapper by using the selector, and that selector is going to be the actual ID. What's the name of the ID? The ID is wrapper. So in order for us to actually target that, we need to put in a hashtag, and then we're going to give the actual name of wrapper. Then from there, let's give it, so this is our CSS rule, which is actually within the same page. And let's give it a property value, the property name of border, and the value of that property, we're going to use a pixel. So 1 pixel of, which is the measure of unit that we're going to use, and solid, and it's going to be black. So we're adding a border here. And you'll notice that there's actually a line from left to right, but there's no content in that. Okay, so what we're going to do for that is let's actually give it, well, the width is pretty much taken the entire width from left to right. Let's give it some content in here. If I add the word, just word, now there's content, and now you see the actual border around the entire wrapper. So that's what we're going to be working with here. So inside that, let's add an actual header. So we have the wrapper. Now let's add, the wrapper is just pretty much a container we'll work with. Let's add the header. And header is an area where you might have a banner, or you might have some type of ad. So let's add another div element. We're going to add an ID of header. Okay, and then what we're going to do is go back up to our style area, which is right in here. And let's give that header some type of dimensions. So I added the ID name of header, which is header. Okay, and let's give it a height. So now we're going to target that div. Well, actually, let's give it a border first, just so we can see it. When you're laying out any type of web page, what you want to do is kind of view everything as boxes and rectangles. So it's a border, 1 pixel in unit. It's going to be solid, and it's going to be red. Okay, and let's see here. Let's give it a height. So now that we can see that, let's give it a height of 100 pixels. Okay, so now we have an actual header, which is up there. And you know what? Maybe we give it a background color. Yeah, let's do that. Let's give it a background color. Give it a background color. And again, don't worry about these property values or the style here, because again, you'll just be able to jump over to the CSS portion and actually learn what all of these actually mean. Okay, so the background color is actually going to do exactly what it is, what it sounds like. It's going to add a background color to our header. Why is it going to add it to the header? Because that is the actual ID name for this div element or this block level element. So here we are, we have header. We actually need to give it a color. So let's go with light blue and close it with a colon. All right, so now we have our header area. This is where you would say, okay, what needs to go there? And then you would just work with just that individual box. But it's still kind of hard to tell. What else are we laying out here? Let me just add one more thing up top here, because I am going to be adding some borders and maybe some padding here. And what I don't want to happen is when we actually give these styles and headers and giving these different elements different types of measurements, I don't want to have to worry about how big the border is or the padding or the margin. So I'm going to just add a global style here, and I'm going to add box sizing. And again, you don't have to know what this is for now because you're going to learn it during the CSS portion. But the short version is this is just going to say, hey, if I make a box 100 pixels and there happens to be a border that's 5 pixels, still make the actual box 100 pixels, 100 pixels in width, and don't worry about the actual the actual padding size or the border size. Okay, so that's that. And let's go back down here and let's add the actual navigation below that. Okay, so here's the header. I'm gonna go below that, but still within the wrapper. Okay, so here's my wrapper, okay, which is the actual container of everything that I'm working with here. Okay, so I'll put a little comment here. This is where the wrapper ends. Okay. All right. And here's the header. Header ends here. Okay. And let's add the navigational area where you would put any type of URL links. And let's go to the ID of navigation. All right, and let's go back up to our style area and lay that out. The ID of that div is navigation. Navigation. Open the curly braces. And let's give it a background color. We don't really need a border now, but we'll just give it a background color. And let's go with purple. You can use purple, or if you wanted to use an actual hexadecimal, you can do something like this or like that. Okay, but let's give it, well, first so we can actually see something. Oh yeah, no, background's fine. All right. Background color, and if it comes up, if you're actually typing here and you see it, you can just press tab and it'll automatically populate for you. From here, what we're going to do is let's give it a background color of, let's see, let's go, I think purple. That's fine. Let's give it a height so we can actually see it. And let's just go with, let's see, the header was 100 pixels, so I'm going to make this one 40 pixels in height. And there's an area that we can use for our navigation. So now for the actual page, this is looking really more of a like a tablet type of version. All right, now we have an area for our header. We have an area for our navigational area as well. So I'll just type in, I'm just going to type in header, so we know where we're at. There's the header area. And for the navigation area, I'll just put navigation. Okay, so you see that there. And below the navigation, let's work on something a little different, like a side area and a main content area. So let's go here. And let's just say this is going to be like the left nav area or the ads area. So let's give it an ID of ads. Okay, and I'll just put a span here with the word ads here. Okay, and what we're going to do from here is let's lay this out back up in our rule area, back in our styles, where all of our style rules are, with properties and values for the properties. So, and the ID for that ads area is ads. And what we're going to do is let's give it a width of only, let's say, well, let's give it a background color first. Okay, background color of sea green. Perfecto. And now, okay, right now it's going all the way from left to right, but I want this area just for the left side. So let's do this. Let's give it a width of 30%. Okay, and we're going to give it a height of, let's say, 300 pixels. Okay, so now we're starting to see a small little layout here. Okay, so if we make this a little bigger, Look at that. We have an area for our header, an area for our navigation, and then an area for the ads. So now what we can do here is, let's go below that, actually below it here, and let's add the main content area. Okay, so this is how you would simply go here, work with the ads, and structure those ads with any of the previous elements that you've learned in this course or from any book or from any boot camp or anywhere. All right, if you want to just work with the header, maybe you just want to put an image there. If you want to work with the navigation, maybe you just put a few, maybe 4 or 5 different links there. Okay, if you're working with just the ads area, so you're noticing we're building this up like a Lego. There's no content in here at all. We're just working with areas where we would actually then work with individual areas as far as the structure and content that you put in there after. Okay, for an hour you might just be working on the navigational area. Okay, and then you might go to lunch and say, you know what, now it's time to work on the ads. Okay, but now let's add the main content area. Let's give it an ID of main content. Okay, and I'm just going to put a little text there so we can see what it is. And this is the main content area. Main content area. Okay, and now here's the thing. Let's give this a width of 70%. Here we have 30% of the actual container. Our overall container is the actual wrapper. Okay, so here we have a main content area. We're going to want it all in this area right here. Now, in order to do that, where's our rule here? We don't have it yet. So let's add it. There we go. We need the name of it, and we named it, what did we name it? Main content. There we go. Let's get rid of that extra curly brace. And let's give it a background color just so we can see what we're working with. And let's go with sky blue. No, steel blue. There we go. All right, still not where we want it, but let's change the width and make it 70%. 70%. There we go. Okay, and let's give it a height. We'll give it the same height as this, so we'll just select that and paste it. Okay, so it's the same height, but it's still in the wrong area. All right, so what we need to do, because again, these are block level elements. So what we can do here is float this to the left, which will then change that block level element into an inline element. So let's do that. All right, and this is stuff that we'll discuss when we're actually laying out future pages as well, and when we talk about CSS a little bit more, but this is just to get your toes wet. So let's float that to the left. Okay, all right, so now we have this box floated to the left, and what we can do here is float this main content here. Let's see what we can do here. Let's float this to the right side. Okay, so again, now we have the header area where you can work on, or a coworker. You have your navigational area. All right, so this is what websites look like before you add all of the content. And this is why we had to cover a number of different elements beforehand, so you can actually add stuff in at a later date or later on throughout the day. Lastly, let's go on ahead and let's add the actual footer. So let's add the footer. We'll say ID, and we'll give it an ID name of footer. All right, we'll put a little text in there just so you know what we're looking at here. Footer area. Whoa. Okay, Control Z to get that out of there. Footer area. All right, and what we're gonna do, let's give it a height. So let's give it a rule first. So we're gonna select that by saying the actual hashtag there. And what do we want to do? We want to give it the actual name. Let's open up the curly braces and end it. We want to give it a height of, let's say 150 pixels, and a background color of, what do we want to go with? Tomato. Why not, right? Okay, and wait a minute now. We have the footer, we have the height, we have tomato. What's missing here? I see nothing in there at all. So sometimes what happens when you're dealing with block level elements, inline elements, sometimes what you need to do is refer to give it some type of label here. So we're going to have this stated as an inline block. But the height, the actual width itself, and this is just something you usually have to play with. Let's give it a width of 100%, even though it should take that already. But here we go. So now we have the width of 100%, and that just disappeared here. And we have a height of 150, and we have float inline block. Yeah, that's not going to work. Well, let's display that as an inline block. So now with the inline, so now what you can do is it's a block level element, but it's also an inline element, and then it's only going to take the actual width that you give it. So for example, what if I wanted to go on ahead and just say, you know what, I want that to be 10%. Okay, so now it's just going to be 10 or 10%. Okay, so now it's just going to be 10% of the actual screen. All right, so with inline block, you can actually mess with the measurements, make it a little better, work out a little better for you. All right, and when you're laying out pages, this is the process. You're going to sit there and go, do I float this to the right? Do I float this to the left? Where's my header going to be? Where's my navigational area going to be? Once you have the skeleton area of how these things are going to look, then you can work on the footer area, and you can have your 5 columns with all of your text like contact us, and maybe a map of where your company is at, maybe a logo or 2 down there, and then that your copyright information or a number of links to additional pages. Okay, so you always want to work this way first. Now, there is also a number of different ways to lay out an actual page. This is a very old school style of laying out a page. Yes, it's quick, simple, and easy for you to do, and you can always go back and watch the video over a little bit and slow it down. But we'll go over different ways to actually lay out pages with additional percentages or different units. We can also use Flexbox and Grid as well. A lot of frameworks use different types of ways of actually laying out pages, but we'll use CSS's Flexbox and Grid attributes, and I mean that's CSS, which is supported by all browsers, so we'll be able to use that. But this is something for you to say, wait a minute, let me open this up a little bit. Look at that. It's a full web page structure. It's a skeleton. We can use this for something. Scale it down. We can use this all the way on tablet or mobile as well, and we can make changes if we wanted to make that a little bit smaller. Okay, so if you have any questions in regards to this, you can always leave a comment. If there's something you did not understand, you can always leave a comment as well. Definitely subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell so you can definitely be in the loop as to when additional material is out. I'm adding material left and right, but not up and down, just left and right. Okay, so feel free, email me if you have any questions. But other than that, that is it for today. All right, Mr. Stack is out.